Hey folks, it's Superhero Roundup once again on SourceFedNERD, where we talk about great TV shows involving comic book characters. I'm Matt Lieberman.
I'm Trisha Hirschberger.
And I'm DJ Wooldridge.
Yeah, and we're talking about Constantine this week, Arrow, Flash, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Lots of mid-season finales.
Yeah, all the mid-season finales except for Constantine's, which airs tonight.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's start by talking about Constantine, where a preacher accidentally grabs the feather of an angel as he's being carried to heaven, then gets all kinds of cool powers. All right, not accidentally.
We think it's accidentally,
Yeah.
and then it ends up to be nefarious.
Yeah.
Yes, good word.
Very
Use of the word
nefarious.
nefarious.
I really like this episode. I mean, again, like, I'm not the hugest fan of Constantine. I want it to be better, but there is promise here.
Yeah.
And the way they built the mystery was good. It didn't follow through for me the way that I wanted.
Yeah, it wasn't the best episode that we've seen so far this season by far, and I'm glad it wasn't the mid-season finale because I would have been a little sad.
Yeah.
But it was a fine episode. I didn't dislike it. I thought it was interesting that they went into the religious zeal. But for me, the most interesting part of the episode was when Manny and the fallen angel, Imogen, when Manny and Imogen were talking, when I hadn't been given the big reveal that Imogen was up to no good, and the angels were just talking about how they'd like to reclaim the earth for themselves and that humans were weak. And at that point I was drawn in because I thought, I was like, ooh, we're bringing in a new objective for the angels, and it's really complex and multi-layered, and this is great. And then we find out that she's up to no good, and I was like, oh, so this isn't like a complex thing for the angels. This is like, she's a bad guy.
But it does allow Manny a chance to become a little bit more complex. Because I don't know about you.
You know that's going to happen.
I think one of the most frustrating. Overall I enjoy Constantine, and before I get a lot of crap for it in the comments, I've decided that this version of the character is Constantine. Even though as a comic reader, I went through a lot of trouble to train my brain to pronounce it Constantine. We've seen the Constantine pilot, and we're going to talk about it. We're also going to.
You say Constantine, I say Constantine.
We're going to start with Constantine, which is how I'm going to continue to pronounce it.
Constantine.
Because that is the way it's supposed to be pronounced in the comics. This character is not that character. This character is Constantine. So I will relent and I will call him Constantine
TJ,
for this show.
You're a big man.
Good boy.
But I think the way it handles his side characters is very frustrating because we can't seem to have Zed or Chaz in the same episode at the same time.
They don't get to have a ton of depth.
And Manny's very annoying. I'm around, but I can't tell you anything. What are you doing?
I like
that
Manny's that annoying because I think it goes to show that the angels are not quite the biggest participators in what's going on. And I'm sure they do have a lot more answers than Manny lets on. And while as a viewer that's frustrating, I love that it sets that up for that world.
I feel like, though, and maybe you agree with this, I feel like we need like a strong Manny episode where he kind of gets caught with his pants down and we see more of Manny than he wants us to see.
I feel like that was this episode, or at least the beginning of that into this episode.
Trying to be this. And I like that. I like the fact that he doesn't really like humanity, which might also play into the fact why he doesn't really play ball with Constantine too much. Although I am trying to figure out, why is Constantine the chosen one to fight the rising darkness? And
I still want the rising darkness to be more specific than just the rising darkness.
But no one said chosen one yet.
Yeah, but they kind of treat him like, I don't know. It's just a weird. I kind of wish. I think it's because Donald Logue's in Gotham, and so we've talked about terriers on the show. I wish Constantine had more of a terrier's vibe, where he kind of stumbled upon something that was larger than him, instead of being like, "You're the guy. We're counting on you to fix this," even though you're kind of a schlub.
I feel like he's just an extreme hobbyist.
What I honestly think is it's a fate thing. I think that he is supposed to, that by putting him on this path, maybe it's just so that Zed is at the right place at the right time. Or maybe it's so that he influences somebody else. Or maybe because, frankly, nobody else would have paid attention or would have been selfish at the right moment.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's a fate thing. For me, at least, I feel like he knows what he's doing. He's proven that he's willing to rush head on into whatever the problem is. And so from Manny's perspective, it's like, well, he's gonna go get in there. He's gonna jump in head first. So if I'm looking at all the people here, look at like a huge group of people. 99% of them are going to run in these situations. So he's like, well, if we got to depend on somebody, my money's on Constantine.
Maybe, DJ, you should think about it this way. There was a chosen one, and Manny was all set to talk to him. He was real excited, and then the chosen one just gets struck by lightning. And it's like, oh, shit.
Well, actually, that would have been good because they kind of set up what's-her-face, I mean, the pilot's dad, as being a legit magic guy. And it would have been great if, like, he was our guy, and then he died, and it's like, damn it.
Well,
that would be
gotta
great.
go with Constantine.
That would be great. Honestly, I feel like a lot of people are panicking that this show's going to be canceled, and I really do hope it gets brought back for a second season because unlike Gotham, this show shows potential.
Yeah.
There's moments where it's cool, like concepts like the
Yeah.
angel falling and stuff like that's cool. There's cool parts to it. And if they can figure out what's Chaz's functions in the group, what is Zed's function in the group, what is Manny's function in the group, and then move forward from there and like figure out a more compelling target than the amorphous rising darkness.
Sometimes it takes 2 seasons. Sometimes it takes 1 season to be like, okay, we've established the world, we had some fun ideas, but this is what worked, this is what didn't.
Right.
Let's attack
Well,
it.
sometimes it takes that whole season to get to care about the characters at all. And something DJ was saying earlier when we were talking about this is that we'd love to see the characters all kind of go into it together as a bit of a Scooby gang or an adventuring party or whatever you want to call it.
A team.
Where everybody has their role and their function in the team as opposed to, well, this actor wasn't free when we filmed this episode, which is kind of disjointed in what it feels like now.
Yeah. Basically, Chaz and Zed fill the same function, and so they can't figure out what to do with them if they're both in the same episode.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
apparently Chaz has a daughter that he needs to make right with. Who knew?
I know.
And it'll take him at least
Yes.
a week.
It feels very disjointed right now.
yeah, and don't worry, you don't need to see it.
It's not important,
It's
really.
not anything that would
Yeah.
make you care about him more
No.
than this monster plot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's episodes left.
Yep.
We're only on episode 6.
Yes.
And
Of 13, right?
of 13.
For the first season.
Exactly. We're only on episode 6. There's plenty of development left, and I honestly think it's doing well enough in the ratings. It's doing well enough, and it has enough international appeal that I feel like it could eke out a second season, especially considering how few of NBC's series this year are popping out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I feel like this is the type of show that could really find itself in a second season without a big cast shakeup like it had at the beginning,
Yeah.
and really become something pretty cool. Now we're going to move on to something that'll be a little bit more controversial at the table,
Yes.
which is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s mid-season finale.
yeah,
I loved it.
I too loved it.
Yes, I have mixed feelings about it.
And DJ and I have been having a good time debating this in the office.
And
this
I've
week.
been purposely doing this
Yes,
so that I didn't
because
have to
you
hear
just
it. So
recently
here we
got a
go.
chance to watch it.
Yeah.
All right.
I loved a lot of the conflict, a lot of the things we learned this episode. We finally got to see Skye and her father together.
Oh, so good.
Great. We've been waiting for that scene for the entire series. I loved it when Skye plugged Ward full of holes.
That was
First
great.
second
That was
she
great.
got.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And not even like a dramatic moment where she looks at him and makes a decision. Nope, just fuck you, sir.
I love that he didn't even get a chance to completely turn his back. Like he was aside, and then it was just.
Yeah. Exactly.
Good for you,
No.
Skye.
Great. We got into the temple. We had a Terrigen mist. We had a Terrigen crystal. Everyone's saying online that it's the Terrigen mist.
Which it is just I was surprised at how little mist there was. It was
You
like
expecting a ton of mist.
It was like a gust of wind.
It was like
Yeah.
someone used one of those electronic cigarettes
Yeah.
and just kind of blew it in their faces.
but that's
I know, I was like,
what
is it
was.
done now?
Yeah, there was a the cocoons, that whole thing. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what that was.
I was really bummed out because Triplet passed away, seemingly. And
Well, not even seemingly. Where are you going to go from
there?
there?
It was like, it was
He's
like maybe he
pretty
won't, and then he
dead.
crumbled, and it's like okay, yeah, he's
well, that's the
probably
thing,
gone.
though.
dead.
He had the most to do this episode that he's had all season.
Yes.
And I was like, oh man, finally, they're giving him something to do. And then as soon as he enters the temple, I'm
like, oh, no.
oh no.
Yeah.
But then for
Yeah.
a second, I was like, wait, what
decided
if
to be
you
hopeful.
what if you just have to be worthy just to like be able to get the temple to close? But if you get in there, you'll be fine. If there's a no, he's dead.
But
Well-
let's not forget that Coulson and Mac are also down there, or are they just not in the
They're just not in
immediate,
the
so
thing.
they're
But
okay?
here's the thing,
They're not-
and
they're
part
okay.
of what bothers me. I mean, part of what bothers me is that Trip doesn't even die on his own terms. He dies as the footnote in some other character's story. People are like, oh, because he was not
was not
in there.
worthy.
That's not what happened.
No, he touched it.
What happened was Skye panicked like a little bitch, asked him to help. He did what he was gonna do. He kicked it. it exploded, and he got shards in him. So the reason he died is because Skye panicked. Apparently, all that spy training that we've emphasized went out the window. She
when
panicked.
the big black glob is swallowing
Which I
her
understand,
whole.
but the point
She
is
wasn't like,
the
"Ooh,
point is
there's a mouse."
there was literally no reason for him to die, and if that ends up emphasizing Skye's growth, like that she has to overcome the fact that if she just stayed calm, Trip would have been fine.
I think if she had not have panicked, that would have been completely out of character for her.
I think, but I mean,
think
these,
if it
we're
was,
talking, we're
if
dealing
it was
with,
Ward or May,
yeah.
I could see maybe them holding it together in a situation like that. But even still, they'd probably reach out for some kind of help.
But the way they portray, I mean, we were supposed to. They comment like at least twice in that episode of how much better she is as an
She's
agent.
doing great.
She's strong.
But
and
it's
she's
also,
whatever.
you have to remember, as no matter how much better as an agent she is still a neophyte agent.
But I think we can.
And she just found out her mom's organs were all chopped up.
Yeah. But I think where our differences come in the episode is not so much in the structure of the episode, because overall the episode was a solid episode. I enjoyed the structure of the episode, except for that part.
I personally think that for whatever reason, the writers do not like BJ Britt. I honestly,
the actor?
yeah, the actor.
I also
honestly
think
so.
they you can just tell by watching this season. I feel like you can tell either they don't like him or also they have no clue what to do with him.
Well, that's the thing,
Yeah.
is they didn't really try to give him, they gave him one bit of character development, which was that his grandfather was in the Howling Commandos, but when we came back, we could have done a bunch of different things with him. We could have had him and Simmons carrying on a relationship because they had chemistry last
could have
year.
easily been in the Hunter or Mac role.
And I think if they were trying to build that kind of tension, they would have built him up a lot more, knowing that he was going to bite the dust.
Exactly, but but that's the thing. They couldn't figure out what to do with him, and instead they found these other characters. They found Mac, and they had a lot of fun writing Mac. And they were like, "Well, we need someone to die." And we already teased that Mac would die. I'd rather get rid of this guy because we don't know what to do with him.
Yeah.
So I think honestly it was just them just kind of like cleaning house, and that BJ Britt is just sort of like paying the price, and it's sad because we do like the character, we just never really got to do anything with him.
Yeah.
It's just a bummer because they had too many characters this season, and they had to just kind of clean it a little bit.
Yeah. This episode, the big reveal is Inhumans exist in this world. Skye/Daisy Raina may not be Inhumans. In the comics, humans that get those abilities later are called New Humans and U-Humans, which I'm hoping they don't do in the show because that's stupid.
Wait, what are they called? New Humans?
New Humans. Which I'm worried they might do because it's obvious that they're kind of protecting the core Inhumans cast for the movie, which connects to my overall bigger issues in that I don't think the show has quite figured out how to deal with its connective tissue. It's finally figured out what it wants to be as a show. It hasn't figured out how to best handle its connection to the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the comic books in general. Because we find out this episode that Daddy is Calvin Zybo, who's Mr. Hyde in the comics, who's a cool villain.
He's
and
so good.
his daughter is Daisy Johnson. Skye is Daisy Johnson, also goes by the codename Quake. What the fuck are we going to call her in the show? Who knows? She was a big part of the Secret Warriors comic from Jonathan Hickman, which is a comic I really enjoyed, and I liked her in it. And now a character I really liked is saddled with Skye.
And that makes you upset.
Which is tough because I don't like Skye that much.
Okay.
And also it makes no fucking sense.
Okay.
Because we've set up like, oh, she's a crazy computer hacker, which has nothing to do with Quake. It's the same thing they did with Coulson's thing. Like, he's connected to the Kree, but he's not connected to the Kree because of alien blood, he could have just been a life model decoy and have to deal with the fact that he's not real.
Yeah.
There's simpler, more effective story decisions that I feel become more evident because this is connected to a source material. And so it makes it frustrating. Like, they overcomplicate things for themselves because, for one, they admitted to not knowing whether they were allowed to use Daisy in the pilot, so they had to wait a season before they got permission to use that character.
Yeah. The fact is, the people who run this show are hampered by being a side project of this Marvel cinematic machine.
Yeah.
The pilot was rushed into development, rushed into shooting. They had to make a lot of decisions on the fly that they then had to pay for by having to take a circuitous way around it in the first season. The fact is, they didn't know that they could do all this stuff. There wasn't enough time to figure it out legally because the pilot had to be in front of cameras by X date. Yeah. So it's not perfect, but we are starting to get these things now, and we have the time necessary to like all the characters as we do them. I know that you don't particularly like her, and there's a lot of people in the audience who hold your opinion. You're not wrong for that.
Definitely.
Opinion. And I honestly think that they're trying to find a balance between making the world more rich and complex while getting to that story efficiency. If you realize they burned through a ton of story this season so far in a way that they never could have in the first season. I think that they're getting to the point where they can strike that balance. You know, Arrow was able to find it in season 2. Maybe for S.H.I.E.L.D. they find it in season 3. And I'm happy to go aboard for that journey. That's me personally.
Yeah.
The dude at the very end who has no eyes. I know who he is.
Oh, who's that?
So there is a character that was recently entered the Inhumans in the comics. His name is Reader, and he is a person whose power is anything that he reads, he can make real.
Awesome.
So in the city that he grew up in, his power was considered so dangerous that they blinded him, so that he could not read anything ever again. And so instead, what he does to fight is he carries strips of tin on his belt that are embossed with Braille words. So he's like Zatoichi, the blind swordsman.
Cool.
He can sense you around him, and he'll read a
Like
word.
a weapon.
Yeah, he'll read fire,
That's
and then he'll
neat.
throw fire at you.
That's really
That's the
cool.
coolest thing I've
hope
ever
that's
heard.
what it is. Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong. I wanted to ask, in the very end, when Sky is coming out of her rock formation, and we see Raina's crumble. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we see Raina's crumble a little, and it looks like she has the beginning of feathers or something.
Or
quills.
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask DJ, with your infinite background knowledge of comics, do you have any idea what that is?
Your infinite crisis.
Comics. With the fact that Sky is Daisy Johnson, it could literally be anybody.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know.
Because that's the other problem I had is Whitehall dies this episode. He never evolves into what he evolves into the comics,
But-
which just proves to me
But
that
I don't think
he
he's dead.
has not aging organs.
I don't
Yes,
think he's dead.
But he hopefully he comes back. I was hoping he'd get hit with the Terrigen Mist and become what he is in the comics. But and again, it's that feeling of it feels like they're just pulling names out of a hat
also
because it
have
could
to
have
remember-
literally been any Hydra villain.
We also have to remember that the budget is not $1 billion.
Well, with that being said, I'm gonna let you boys talk about Flash and Arrow.
Yeah, thank you, Trisha. So let's talk Flash.
Yes.
A solid episode.
Yes.
I mean, the Arrow episode was amazing.
Yeah,
We're
but
gonna
we'll get to that in a minute.
Very solid episode of Flash. We finally got to see the much-awaited meeting of Flash and Reverse Flash. We had him basically name drop that he is the reverse of Flash.
Some would
Like
even say reverse.
I'm the reverse. Okay. All right, buddy. Chill out. And I love the reveal at the end. I love the reveal that it was 2 speedsters the night that Barry's mom died.
One presumably good, the other Reverse Flash.
Yeah.
Is my presumption at least.
And I agree with you. And for those of you who don't understand why, or maybe haven't reached that conclusion, one of the parts that's always kind of stuck out of that story is Barry got zoomed out of the house.
Yes.
Is that he was there and then a second he wasn't there. And I have to imagine if Reverse Flash is a bad guy, he would have just killed Barry.
Yeah.
So someone must have taken him out of there. And now we have Wells, who was able to witness Reverse Flash and get beaten up by Reverse Flash, but is also Reverse Flash.
Yeah, and I think the fact that there are 2, even though it's probably a good one, a bad one, I think that actually hence to something deeper with Reverse Flash. You didn't realize how little actual fighting has gone on in the show because of Flash's speed until this episode.
Where he just gets leveled.
Well, it's actually a fight because they're actually Reverse Flash is presumably faster. They say he's faster than Flash is, and they actually fight. Typically, it's Barry saving people from a train or trying to figure out how, which has been very cool. They've actually done a really good job avoiding. Head-to-head fights
except for in
the big example actually being Flash vs. Arrow.
And the one where he has to fight Girder.
Yeah. But this is a straight up, and those to me were the coolest parts of the episode. Flash versus Reverse Flash was all them racing through the city and the fight in the stadium. It just felt, the stadium was cool because it just gave it a sense of scope.
Yes.
Even though there's nobody in the stadium, it made it feel like
the
biggest arena
grand
possible.
and epic. Yeah.
You probably agree with me that the weakest element was Ronnie. Because why was he in the end?
No, the weakest element for me was all of the dang relationship stuff. I mean, finally Barry admits to Iris that he's in love with her, but it's just like dragging their feet through the whole episode. And it's just like, none of us like Iris. We don't. friggin' just him and Caitlyn just get together already. I mean, I know this episode planted the seeds of it with like Ronnie coming back and her being like, I wish that he was dead.
Yeah.
Which of course she won't. She'll be all conflicted.
Yeah. But I do think though one of the biggest flaws with these showrunners is that that OTP of like whoever the love interest was in the comics, they already know them and they're already meant to be together because it just makes things like just have it be was in the comics. They meet them at some point. I could have done with a Flash show that Iris West was not immediately a part of.
Yeah. And
she shows up after the mid-season. Like, I would have been fine with that.
But it's the CW, and we need a female protagonist.
Good point.
But she's not even the strong female protagonist on the show.
Yeah.
Caitlyn's a much stronger character. Yeah. The Ronnie stuff, I have to admit, was not handled the greatest.
It was cool. It just felt like it should have been in a different episode.
And the effects, like the fire around his hair, his wig is like real weird.
Yeah.
But when he flew away, I was cool. Like, hey, man. I'm okay with that.
Personally, I think what we're seeing with Reverse Flash, because it's confusing, and I think maybe a little overly confusing. Maybe it could have been less confusing.
Maybe a little bit like S.H.I.E.L.D.
But anyway, I think what we're seeing is that Harrison Wells is not the only person from the future. And I feel like he is working with the actual
He's colluding with somebody.
And I think that person is probably Eobard Thawne, who is Eddie's great-great-grandson, because I'm getting a very Tommy vibe from Eddie in that you don't like him and you think he's going to be a bad guy, but then
he's just going to be fine.
He's just going to be a good person until he dies, and then you're going to feel really bad about it for hating him all that time.
Yes.
Because if you look at both Harrison Wells and how they're portraying, and the fact that Eddie Thawne exists, it seems like they're taking the two main Professor Zooms, or Reverse Flashes, Eobard Thawne and then Hunter Zolomon, who was Wally West's version of Professor Zoom.
Yeah.
And like I said before, I think Eobard Thawne's going to be Reverse Flash, and then it wouldn't surprise me, especially with his like electric wheelchair, if Cisco gives Harrison Wells the nickname Professor Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see that coming.
And so I think that's going to be
fine.
how they make it work. Because otherwise, it's a little.
But riddle me this, Batman, okay? It didn't seem like this Reverse Flash's motivation here was to make Barry better. In fact, I thought he was going to straight up kill him in that parking lot.
I agree, which is why it might be somebody else, because clearly Harrison's trying to make.
Yes.
And he's involved in that somehow.
He's the classic Reverse Flash motive.
And either he is Reverse Flash or he's connected to Reverse Flash because he's got the costume and his little. And great shout out to the Flash ring and the Silver Age. He kept his costume in the ring.
Solid.
Which makes no sense, but it was the Silver Age.
But it was awesome.
Yeah. And so that was fun. It sucks that the bad guy has it. I hope maybe Barry will get it at some point. That would be cool for me.
Yeah.
And then the question for me is, if we're saying bad Reverse Flash and good Flash are in the past, is it Barry, which sucks for Barry because he clearly fails, or is it maybe Bart Allen, who was Impulse in the comics and Barry's grandkid from the far future?
I feel like it's far more impactful if it's Barry.
Yeah.
If he has an opportunity, if he's chasing Zoom through time, and he winds up in that moment, and he realizes that he was there all along, and that he failed to kill he failed to save his mother. That's a big deal.
But then, if that happens, does he get to relive it, and does he get to save his mom?
I don't know.
Which
crazy time stuff. I don't know. And also, so you were telling me that technically Reverse Flash doesn't go really fast. He slows down time. In the
Hunter Zolomon version of the character, which was created by Jeff Johns, by the way.
Who helps run the show.
Yeah, went the extra mile with the whole Reverse Flash idea. And so instead of him going really fast, he affects his own personal timeline. So he slows everything down around him. Which, when they're really confused about what's going on with the force field, like it's not reacting, maybe because they built it to trap a speedster, and he is not that.
He's not that.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that that's true, because it would still appear to everyone involved that he was just moving really fast.
Yes. And also, Jeff Johns created that. So,
It makes sense to me, and I honestly think that it's more interesting that there's somebody with the exact opposite powers versus somebody who's just faster.
Because some would say he's the reverse.
So that episode was solid, but the Arrow episode was superlative.
Which was killer, no pun intended. The first half of season 3 for me has been reminded me a lot of season 1, where it's a lot of like them figuring stuff out. And season 1 really got a lot of mileage out of its mid-season finale, and I feel like the same thing's gonna happen with this finale, because it changes the game
entirely.
Yes.
Yeah.
do we start with? Do we work
Yes,
to the end?
no, we start with it because that's what everyone wants us to talk about. Is we end with Oliver Queen stabbed through the gut and falling off a damn cliff.
You had issues with the actor who plays Ra's al Ghul when he first portrayed him. How do you feel now with this episode?
I like him a lot better.
I really like the way they portray him.
He's really solid. He has that timeless quality.
Yeah.
But
he also looks like a guy that could take off his shirt and kick somebody's ass.
Seriously, he looks like somebody who could literally take you apart with his bare hands, which is what he did.
Yep. I love that he's got the two swords, and then Oliver's like, "You don't have a weapon." Like, I thought he was going to give him the sword. Right? He's like, "I'll just take yours."
Yep. When you're done with it, because I killed you. Whew.
Well, it's great to me. It was. This is a great example of when you have a character that's pre-established. Like typically in these shows, you don't feel very threatened for the main character because they're the main character. And how do you create that tension? And something Breaking Bad did a really good job of is you put them in situations that you don't see a way they can get out of it. Like, I literally don't know. I know he's the main character and he should survive, but I literally don't see a way that he can get out of it.
Like last season with Deathstroke, it was just sort of like, he's better than him in every way. I don't know how he's going
to get out of it, which makes the eventual triumph that much more gratifying. You set up the situation. It's Ra's al Ghul. He's one of the biggest bads in the DCU.
Period.
One of the few people that can go to town with Batman, go toe to toe, and you're putting Arrow against him, and it's one of those that like, we know Ollie should get out of this, but it's kind of going to weaken the Ra's al Ghul character.
Yeah, and I was like, until they started fighting, I'm like, all right, I guess he's gonna beat Ra's, and then Ra's is gonna jump in the Lazarus pit and come back, and everything will be, and we'll do it again. No, it's not even a fight; it's an execution.
Ra's isn't even trying. This episode showed how good the show's been with its main villains because Malcolm Merlyn gets a really solid scene. He's been killing it as the maniacal villain this season.
Yeah.
Slade Wilson is still the top bar that every other villain on the show needs to compete with. But Ollie beat both of those people.
Yep. It was hard, but he did it.
He did it. Ra's isn't even close. And I love his whole speech about the first man he killed was great. I replaced evil with death. Oh, I get this guy's motivation.
Yeah.
And then he does his prayer after he stabbed Oliver. In case that wasn't a big enough thing, kicks him off the mountain, throws the sword on the ground, walks away, roll credits.
Awesome. Awesome. And it adds, that's the problem with television and with your main characters is that ultimately menace is non-existent. You know that by and large, everyone will be okay. Maybe someone will die, but your main character is safe, right? Wrong. And for people who don't know what a Lazarus pit is, they don't know what the fuck they just saw.
Yep.
There are people who are stunned and holding themselves. And my favorite part is that Stephen Amell is totally playing into it on his social media and basically being like, thank you everybody, it's been a great run. I'm so excited that, now that I'm gone, that we can highlight our amazing extensive cast. Yep. It's been a real pleasure serving you as Oliver Queen these past 3 seasons. And it's like, no, fuck you, man. You know exactly what's going on, you son of a bitch. I love you.
But the crazy thing is, if they Lazarus pit him, and there might be another way of bringing him back.
It's going to really screw with his mind.
Who is he going to be at that point? Is he going to have to relearn how to be the Arrow? It's great because it resolves a lot of the problem, because everything was a little too neat after the end of season 2. Like, most of the major conflicts have been resolved. I mean, he literally, Oliver had to go out of his way to make things complicated for himself by not wanting to be Felicity and all that stuff.
Right. That's why there needed to be so much world building at the top of this season, which was frustrating, but it's because we had to generate new conflict. And now we also had that big moment between Oliver and Felicity where he finally says that he loves her, he's about to go off to fight to the death. And I have to imagine when he comes out of that Lazarus pit, love is not going to be on the menu.
No. In fact, he might become an agent of Ra's al Ghul, which would be pretty crazy.
That would be really crazy.
And it looks like both Laurel is going to have to step up her game and become Black Canary a little sooner than anticipated, and Ray Palmer is going to have to don that sweet-looking armor.
Yeah.
It might not look as cool once it's not CGI rendered. But
now, wait, so it's the Atom suit, but then he also calls it OMAC.
He basically, I guess he's taking the OMAC technology, reworking it to be something positive. Which is interesting. I don't know what's going to come from that.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes, won't we?
No. I'm much more excited for the back half of the season. It's going to be really interesting. I hope we get to see more of Ra's al Ghul because he's become very compelling.
Yeah. It's also going to be the most comic booky the show has ever been.
Yes.
They've set up a lot of big swing stuff that's really exciting for longtime fans.
Yep. It'll be an exciting. back half of the season. Some news this week, Sony big hack. I don't really want to get into it. I haven't read any of the actual reports because I don't think hacking is good.
But everyone is talking about that some of the leak reports involved their negotiations to give Spider-Man back to Marvel for
sort of like a 60-40
Yeah, like they would
thing.
still get a large percentage of the profits of the movie and ultimately have creative control. The interesting news though is that apparently because of the hack and because of the bad press, Sony executive Kaz Hirai is far more interested in giving Spider-Man back to Marvel because it's like, well, we're finished. We need a win here, and this will curry public opinion. And honestly, we have no faith in these upcoming sequels.
Yeah, and which would be very cool. I don't necessarily like the idea of putting Spider-Man into Civil War because I feel like it's a really weird place to introduce your main character for the franchise.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see.
On the TV front, Mark Hamill's coming to Flash.
Yeah, as the Trickster who he played in Justice League Unlimited.
And who he played in the original 90s Flash show.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So that's really cool. I'm really excited for that because Mark Hamill's the shit. Next week, Wednesday, Batman 37, Justice League 37. The big news on the DC front is Multiversity Thunderworld. Grant Morrison's been killing it on Multiversity, and this is focusing on Shazam. So if you're excited to see The Rock in the new Shazam movie, check that out. Django Zorro, crossover between Quentin Tarantino's Django.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. So check that out. It's issue number 2 over at Marvel. Moon Knight number 10. Warren Ellis and Declan Shelby brought the character back in a really cool way. Brian Wood's on the comic now, not quite as cool, but still a cool book. Definitely check that out. And then Annihilator, also by Grant Morrison, which is a cool like gothic horror, sci-fi, mindfuck type deal. So that's cool. Also, even though I haven't been really reading Batman and Superman recently, amazing cover by Darwin Cook that is almost worth picking up the comic just for
the cover.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's it. Pull list for this week.
All right. So, folks, what did you think of this week's episodes? Let us know on Twitter at the hashtag #SHRoundup and keep watching the show. We love doing it.
Yep.
I'm Matt Lieberman.
I'm DJ Wooldridge, and this is our mid-season finale.
Because most of the shows are going off the air. We're going to be bringing the show back once enough shows are on the air to make a roundup necessary.
Yep.
Agent Carter's coming on the air, I believe, on January 8th, and hopefully Flash and Arrow will be back before the end of January. So look for this show again sometime in January.
Hopefully,
see you in the new year, folks. Thanks for watching.
Have a happy holidays and see you in the new year.
Goodbye.
Bye. It's been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure, sir.
Yeah.
You're wrong about S.H.I.E.L.D.
It's my opinion, man.